All right, what is good, ladies and gentlemen? It is the Master Reviewer back again with another review, and tonight we are doing a review for Horton Hears a Who. This is in preparation for a viewer recommendation for a comparison. So first I am going to be reviewing this film, and then I'm going to, I think right after, I'm going to be recording that comparison video. So yeah, I'll give a bit of background for this film. It is, my family used to have a car that, they still have a car, but we used to have like a family car that had a DVD player that was able to like play DVDs, and so me and my siblings, we would usually watch movies in that car, and this was the film that we would watch the most often. We had like a DVD of Horton Hears a Who, and so we would watch this film in our car on replay for like, I think almost a year. I think we had this in the DVD player straight, because I think we just never really changed the DVDs for some reason. So yeah, so I watched this film a multitude of times as a kid. Honestly, I think this might be the film I rewatched the most as a kid, around the age of like when I was in elementary school, around that time. So this is a rewatch for me, one of like, I think probably at the very least like the sixth rewatch for me in my life, probably like much more than that. But yeah, so I like this film a lot as a kid, and rewatching it once again, I still very much like it. So let us just get into it, starting off with the plot / adventure. So the film basically is about an elephant named Horton, and he ends up seeing this speck. Like at the very start of the film, it shows like this raindrop that ends up falling off. It hits this like, I don't know how to describe it, one of those like spiky ball things that you find in nature sometimes, and then it ends up rolling, and then eventually it hits a flower that has a speck on it. And then on this speck there is a village of people called Who's, like the place is called Whoville. So this speck ends up flying away, and then it ends up kind of flying through the forest of Newell. And then Horton, he happens to see this speck, and so he ends up leaving his class, like he teaches a class or something like that, and then he ends up leaving the class to go find the speck and make sure that the speck doesn't get hurt, because he hears someone on the speck, and he thinks like, well, there might be someone on the speck that might end up getting hurt if like I don't do something. So he ends up catching the speck on a flower, and then he manages to make contact with the mayor of Whoville, who is Mr. McDodd. So, but they mostly just call him the mayor for most of the movie. So he ends up making contact with Mr. McDodd, and then the film is basically, McDodd realizes like, if we don't get stability, he asks like one of his scientists, and then she basically says, if we don't get stability, like in a hypothetical scenario that we were on a speck, then our village would most likely be destroyed. So then McDodd basically, like the mayor, he tells Horton like, hey, you need to get us like somewhere stable, otherwise our entire town will be destroyed. And so basically the movie becomes, Horton is on a mission in order to get to, there's like a mountain at the top of the mountain where he sees that there's a flower there, and so his mission is basically, I need to get to that mountain in order to make sure that the Whoville is safe. But along the way, there is this sour kangaroo. I forgot her name. I think her name is just Kangaroo. So it's listed here as Kangaroo. They describe her as a sour kangaroo. And then she really like has this vendetta against Horton, like because of this flower, she calls it nonsense. So she basically has this like mentality of like, you can't see it, you can't hear it, you can't feel it. It doesn't exist. So she like really does not like the fact that Horton is going on about this flower, because she says that it's giving the kids ideas and like causing them to use their imagination, so they might start questioning authority. And that's very much like, I was thinking like, what are the themes of this movie, and the themes of the film are very much like it's hard for me to describe honestly, but there's like a lot of themes you could say, but I think one of the themes are like, I guess I don't know, the best thing that comes to mind is like Galileo, where it's like he said that the Earth he said the Earth was like not the center of the universe, but then no one believed him. But then it's like he proved himself right. So it's like for some reason that's what I'm reminded of with this. So it's like the message is like just because everyone says something doesn't mean it's true. I think that's like what the message is. So, but anyway, so yeah, the film is basically Horton is trying to get the flower to the top of Mount Newell, and along the way the kangaroo is trying to stop him. Vlad here, there's a vulture, Vlad, that also gets hired, you could say, to stop him, even though he's not really getting paid. And so yeah, that's most of the movie. And then you have like basically no one believes Horton, and then no one believes the mayor that like any of that stuff is going on, basically. So and it culminates in, I'll get to basically here, I'll get to some of the details later in the review, but it does end up culminating in Horton. Everyone in the forest of Newell basically like is, for some reason they're like so pissed off with Horton, with like him believing that there's people on this flower, so they end up like tying him up with ropes, caging him and stuff, and they're like, we're gonna burn this flower. And I'm thinking to myself, like, it is not that deep. Like, even if he does believe this stuff and you guys don't believe it, like, you're going through too much trouble for this. Like, it's not doing anyone any harm. So anyway, So everyone basically goes against Horton, but then the Who's, they manage to, after I'll get into it a bit later, but the Who's, like after they finally believe Horton for, like they believe what the situation that's going on, then they all start to try to make as much noise as possible, and then they manage to do so. And so Rudy, which is the kangaroo's son, he ends up catching the flower before it falls into like a pot of like boiling oil or something like that. And so then he hears it, he believes, and then everyone else around like believes and stuff. So that the Who's are real. And so yeah, I guess all's well that ends well. Like they untie Horton, everything's good, and like even Horton like forgives the kangaroo for like her BS and all that. So yeah, happy ending and all that. So overall, I'll give the plot / adventure, I will say it is it's pretty good. It's like I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10, maybe even a 7.5, but I'm gonna be harsh and just give it a 7. I think it's a pretty straightforward adventure of just like he's trying to get to the top of Mount Newell, and there's like people trying to stop him and stuff along the way. Like no one really believes him and for about like why he's doing this, and then no one believes the mayor as well. And so I think it's like a pretty straightforward plot, but it's pretty unique and one that we haven't really seen before. So I'm gonna say it's a pretty good adventure / plot, I'd say. So in terms of the characters, I think all the voice actors do a great job. There's a lot of like big ones. There's Steve Carell, who was also in Over the Hedge, which I reviewed previously. That was the last review that I did. So there is Over the Hedge. There's Steve Carell in this film. He voices the mayor. You have Jim Carrey voicing the titular Horton character. You have Will Arnett voicing Vlad. You have there's other voice actors. All of them do a good job, I think, and all the characters as well. I think Horton is a fun lead, a good lead. I would say the mayor as well is good. There's no like really bad characters. I think the kangaroo, she plays like a good like antagonist, I would say. Vlad is also pretty entertaining. There are like some side characters, like Horton, he teaches this like class of children and stuff, but they're not really. One of them is actually voiced by I'm blanking on his name for some reason, Jonah Hill. Yeah, one of the characters is for some reason voiced by Jonah Hill. So, but he has like 2 lines in the entire film. So, every character is good, I would say. Like except not every character is good. Let me take that back. There are characters that like the class that Horton teaches that they just kind of show up for the beginning of the film and a bit towards the middle, but then it's like they don't do anything afterwards. There's like the Wickersham monkeys, which are only really at the end and stuff. There's like there's a lot of characters that just don't get developed too much. There's like the city council for Whoville that's kind of just meant to be opposition for the mayor. There is all of the mayor's children. I'm looking at now. Apparently, one of his children is voiced by Selena Gomez, so that is interesting. So there is a lot of characters that are just not really prominent. There's basically, it mainly just focuses on the mayor, Horton, and I guess you could say Vlad and the kangaroo, and that's it. So overall, I'm going to say that the characters are, I still like the main characters, so I'm going to say that the characters are, I will go with, again, between like a 7 to a 7.5, like between pretty good and very good. And I am going to, there's also Morton, who is like the mouse that kind of like, he doesn't really believe Horton, but he's like not against him. He's like just trying to look out for Horton pretty much. So he's also voiced by like, what's his name? Seth Rogen, yeah. So overall, I'm going to give the characters, I would say, a 7 out of 10. I think that the main ones like Horton and the mayor, they're all good and stuff, but I do think that there are like some other ones that just don't really have a lot of development or anything. So in terms of these settings, I think that it's like 2 basic settings. There is the jungle of Newell, which all looks pretty cool, very Dr. Seuss-esque, as well as Whoville, which is, once again, like very much has this wacky vibe to it because it is like based on Dr. Seuss and stuff, and so it all looks very, very unique, very interesting, I would say. And all the settings, I would probably give a 7 out of 10 once again. I think it is all pretty good, I'd say. So 7 out of 10, I think you have the forest areas, you have like the bridge area, you have the astronomy observatory in Whoville, you have the Who's house in itself. It's all like, it all looks interesting, nothing like great, I would say, but still all of it looks pretty interesting, I'd say. So as well as all the areas in towards the end, you also have the mountain that Horton ends up climbing, and an actual field full of like flowers that he has to look through in order to find the flower, and it is all it's all pretty good, I'd say. So a 7 out of 10. So in terms of the art style, this is Blue Sky, and they are they usually have like good art styles. I think it's like fine. I don't have any like deep thoughts about the art style. I would probably give it I would say like a 5.5. It's like decent. I wouldn't really call it great or anything, but I think it works probably. Like, so I'm just gonna give it a 5.5. Now, in terms of the comedy, the actual jokes that they tell, like the one-liners and stuff, I didn't really find a lot of them funny, to be honest. There were like maybe a few good ones, but most of it was pretty bad. However, the physical comedy, I really like the physical comedy. The physical comedy, like pretty much all of it, with the mayor, with Horton, like all of it, I think worked very well. So I'll say the jokes themselves, not really that great. However, the physical comedy, I would give like very high. So overall, I'm going to give the comedy, I will give it a 7.5. I'm going to say I'll balance it out to say very good, because I did like the physical comedy a lot, but I did not really like any of the jokes or one-liners, so I'm going to balance it out and say the comedy was very good, but yeah, so like none of the one-liners or jokes were like bad. I just didn't find any of them funny. So yeah, in terms of the drama now, I thought the drama of this was great, because like in two specific scenes. Number one, the ending where it's like they're all trying to make as much noise as possible, otherwise like their world will basically be destroyed and stuff, I thought was just fantastic. Very good final scene. I will say this, I did find it, actually I'll mention this afterwards, I'll give a bit of criticism afterwards. So, and then the second scene was the one where Vlad ends up taking the flower, and so Horton has to like go after Vlad in order to get the flower back. It's like extremely dramatic. You have all this like incredible music playing in the background, and it is just absolutely just a great scene. And then it's really tense. It's like extremely tense. And then Horton, like, he fails to get the flower, and then like when the flower drops, like the music, it like all crescendos, and then it's like you have Horton looking over a field of like just miles long of just like all these like similar looking flowers. So it is just those two scenes, like the drama of this, as well as like there's also like I guess the bridge scene and stuff, which are, so it does a good job with the drama. So honestly, I will give the drama of this, it is honestly between like an 8 to an 8.5, I would say, but maybe even higher. Like maybe I would okay, I'm gonna give it like I'm gonna give it an I would say honestly between like an 8.5 to a 9 even, I would say, like between amazing and incredible. And I am going to, should I be harsh or generous? I'm going to give it an 8.5 for what I'm about to say afterwards. Like I would be generous, but I'm going to be harsh because of certain reasons, which I will now state, which are that I do think that there's a lot of like suspension of disbelief and just a lot of stuff that just doesn't really make sense. And I do think that I'm going to say that this is the worst part about the film. There's like a lot of stuff that I just don't really, that doesn't really flow logically, I feel like, where not even ignoring the stuff about like the actual logic of the movie and stuff, which I usually don't really criticize, because it's like it's a movie, you're not meant to take it so seriously. But like Vlad, he flies over the mountain and stuff. Horton has to climb this like enormous mountain, and then when he gets to the top, like I'm assuming Vlad was like waiting for him for some reason instead of just getting rid of the flower. I guess like fine to toy with him and stuff, but still it like kind of cuts some of the drama loose, which is why I'm not going to call the drama incredible, I'm just going to call it amazing. And then there is the actual Whoville gets destroyed and stuff. Like, however, like Vlad drops the flower, Whoville falls, and then it shows like all these buildings, like they jump into the air and stuff. And it's like from what they're portraying, it shows like that Whoville gets destroyed and stuff. But then a few scenes later, when it's like, or like one scene later, basically, when Horton gets the flower back and then he talks to the mayor, it's like it cuts to Whoville and shows that everything was fine. So like it does undercut some of the drama a bit, where it's like you find out that nothing actually happened. So. As well as like there is at the whole entire beginning scene with like the speck like floating around stuff, somehow it like didn't manage to reach the water and stuff. And there's just a lot of stuff that you have to end up suspending your disbelief when it comes to this movie. As well as like for some reason none of the other Who's like notice anything that's going on, except for like when it starts snowing, then the scientist who she ends up basically coming to the mayor and saying like, hey, you somehow predicted this was like that this is happening and stuff. However, just no one notices that like the buildings are like starting to jump into the air and stuff, like all the weird stuff that is going on, like the tremors and stuff. Like no other Who noticed this, and no one even views it as a problem. Like the mayor says like, hey, there's been a lot of weird stuff going on, and like maybe we should postpone the Who Centennial. But it's like no one else seems to care about it for some reason. So there's just a lot of like suspension of disbelief, which I will say no, like normally it's I don't really want to say that it is like my least favorite thing about the film, but I don't really like using that as the worst score, because like there's just a lot of stuff in a lot of movies that you could say like, hey, that like in Overhead the Hedge I just like reviewed, I could say like, oh, it doesn't make sense that I don't know, some of the stuff in that film like doesn't really make complete sense. Like why would the traps and like that they would set for the animals in that film, like why were they so drastic and stuff? But then at the end of the film, the bear and the Verminator and like Gladys, they end up in the same trap, but then somehow like they survive it or whatever. So like I could nitpick and stuff, but I don't like using nitpicks as like the worst score. So I'm not going to say that it's the worst score. I'm not going to say the suspension of disbelief. So I'm going to, actually fine, I will use suspension of disbelief, because I do think that honestly it is the worst thing about the film. But I am going to just give it I'll give it like a 5 out of 10. I'll just say it's not good or bad, because it is like something that you're not really meant to take. You're not supposed to analyze it like you're not supposed to extremely analyze it, but it does like kind of like once again like it undercuts some of the drama, I'd say. So yeah, 5 out of 10 for the amount of like suspension that you have to disbelieve. I think that's how that saying is supposed to go. So not saying, phrase, whatever you want to call it. And the best thing, in my opinion, the best thing I would say is probably those two scenes, like the two scenes specifically where it's like the chase scene with Vlad and Horton, like towards the end of the film, and then the actual final, not the final scene of the film, but like one of the final scenes of the film where Horton is being captured and like all the Who's are trying to make music and stuff, and in order to like tell the people that they're here and stuff. So those two scenes, like I think the drama along with the music, it was like honestly, whoever did the music for this movie like did a great job. I don't know who is the one that ended up doing the soundtrack, but absolutely, like the score is like wonderful. So those two scenes at the end, I'm going to give like a 9 out of 10 for those two scenes. Honestly, they were incredible, I'd say. So definite 9 out of 10. I don't think I would call them the best, but I would say a 9 out of 10 for those two scenes at the end. So let's hear any extra notes I have. The intro is pretty cool, where it's like it does have like this drop of water and it has like this butterfly effect, as well as there is like the great music in the background that is accompanying that scene. So yeah, definite. I did think that the intro was very cool. They did have like some Dr. Seuss references, like they did show green eggs and ham in the lunch or dinner scene, whatever it was, with the mayor's family. So I did notice that, and I never really noticed that on a first watch. So there was a cool 2D animation scene with it was like anime styled Horton, where it's like he's pretending to be a ninja or whatever, and he's like fighting a tree or something like that. So that was a cool scene. Let's see what else. No, I think that is. Yeah, that is. I think I mentioned everything up to this point. So yeah, that is all the extra notes I have. So I'm going to do the calculations. So King Crimson. All right, so it ends up coming out to exactly a 7 out of 10. Not exactly, actually. Around a 7 out of 10. Which would be pretty good, and I think I would give it higher than that. I think I would probably give this film like maybe between a 7 to a 7.5, but I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give it a 7.5. I thought it was a very good film. I liked it as a child, and I still think that it is a very good film. So solid 7.5 I would give it. I don't think I would go as far as to like call it a great film. I don't think it's like an 8 out of 10. Maybe if I was like extremely generous, I would give it an 8, but yeah. So I guess you could say like it's a 7.5 to an 8, but I'm being harsh and calling it a 7.5. So I'm going to give it a 7.5. I thought it was very good, and so yeah. So yeah, that is pretty much all there is to it. So if you have any recommendations, any shows, movies, video game stories, anime, web series, anything that you want me to review, leave it in the comments, and I will maybe possibly check it out. But with that said, that is pretty much all there is to it. So let's leave it at that.